Let's talk more about that story now with the Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Olena Zerkal, who joins us here in studio. Good morning to you, Ms. Zerkal. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. We saw there are a list of issues to discuss, but first let's talk about domestic policy. Yesterday, Parliament voted to dismiss the public prosecutor for the third time since 2014 for not being tough enough on corruption. How big of an issue is corruption?
You see, it's more the lack of trust to the prosecutor office as such, because we inherited this office since the last revolution in the current condition. And of course, this is a necessity to change a perception of the prosecutors and their role in the society. Because we used to have such an old Soviet-style prosecutor office, and we definitely need to change this. And this is quite a crucial change, because actually it will mean the change of approaches in each and every dimension of the prosecution in Ukraine. And Ukrainians, they don't believe to such a procedure now.
Okay, so there's a lack of trust in that office.
Yes.
Also, it seems in the political system in general. Let's talk about the current political crisis. Why can't these various parties at play create a stable coalition?
Because most of them have different aims and goals. We do understand that some kind of early elections may appear because of lack of trust in the government, in the society. Because all these changes we are going through now, they're painful. All increase of tariffs, decrease of salaries, and so on. That creates a situation when people are not satisfied with the current situation. And of course, it has some implication on the political situation overall.
One reason they're not satisfied is the economy, of course. At risk, if there's no stable coalition, is a $1.7 billion loan from the IMF. Do you think we could see the economy collapse because there's no stable government?
I still believe that they will manage to agree among each other, because definitely it's not only about the political forces, it's about the country. And that will join them in a common understanding of the necessity to create such a government, which will be quite stable with a view to go through all these painful challenges.
I want to bring up that term, lack of trust, that you mentioned already. That's something that some Ukrainians have expressed towards President Poroshenko after he's failed to follow through on some of the reform promises, for example, tackling corruption. Do you think that faith in his government is still there?
I may say that, of course, after the revolution, citizens expected much more. And faster reforms and more results should be delivered. But you see, the changes in general in the society and the approaches, they're very slow. And of course, it's also a lack of understanding of the necessary changes. We do want to live in a new way, but we don't want to change ourselves and to behave in another manner, because corruption is everywhere. And it's up to people to change their own behavior and not to give bribes.
We saw the Prime Minister, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, in that report. He and President Poroshenko do not see eye to eye on various issues. What is the problem there?
I can't say that they don't see eye to eye each other. They have very permanent meetings and they talk about a lot of things. But definitely, this is not only the personal factor. This is a factor of the perception among political parties. The parties itself, they don't believe to each other because of breaking promises in the past.
I want to move now, of course, to the situation in the east of the country. We have to talk about that as well. There have been various ceasefire violations, and there are growing concerns on the side of negotiators, France and Germany, that the Minsk deal will not actually lead to anything. Why do you think this deal has failed to take shape?
I can't say that it failed. We still believe that some kind of progress is possible. And we definitely see that the situation in the East is much calmer than it used to be a year ago. Of course, it's not a full ceasefire, but it's more secure than it used to be. And this is a progress that we achieved. Of course, we have not achieved the full progress in the humanitarian aspects, and we did not manage to change all hostages. And this is one of the crucial issues because, for instance, Nadia Savchenko is one of the hostages and political hostages, which is now in Russia. And we can't solve this issue without understanding how to move further. And with all these processes with Minsk, you see, we can't just close our eyes on the existing problems in the East, because we still don't have full access of SMM OSCE to the territories. We can't secure our people on the contact line. And we still can't understand how to deal with the elections, because for the free elections, you will need access, at least, of the media to that territory. Is it possible?
But isn't that part of the Minsk agreement, the terms, that an election law does need to be passed for the Donbas region?
No, that's not actually the point. The point is what will be in that law. What kind of constellation we will face in this law, whether it will be fair, whether these internally displaced people will have access to these elections, because these are main and crucial blocking points in this discussion.
All right, you mentioned Nadia Savchenko. I do want to ask you about her. How much strain is the controversy over her imprisonment putting on Ukraine's relations with Russia?
This is just one of the points which showed us all this situation with the relations, because she is a hostage, and she is quite a picture of such relations between Russia and Ukraine.
What are you demanding from the Russian side there?
Of course, we are demanding to get her back, and that's our full and constant demand.
Now, I want to ask you about, of course, you're here in Germany, about Ukraine's relations with the EU. What is your message to Western leaders? Many of them welcome the new Ukrainian government, but they're dismayed about the reports of corruption and mismanagement. What do you have to say to that?
That despite all challenges, we're still moving on the path of our reforms. And we actually delivered a lot during last period. And that was actually in the report of the European Commission at the end of the year, that we made a significant progress, for instance, in the combating corruption and creation of the new institutions. Of course, we need some time to make this institution workable and to deliver some results of their work. However, I still believe that we are on the right way.
The EU has backed visa-free access for Ukraine. Do you still see that happening?
Yeah, I hope that we will have this access this year.
Where do you see your country, with the current political crisis and economic crisis, where do you see your country in 5 years' time?
I suppose that all these reforms will bring our country closer to Europe, and that we will bring Europe to our country, that we will change the perception of our citizens, and they will be responsible for their future.
And will the conflict in the east of the country be ended?
I hope so, because this is quite an artificial conflict. And I hope that we will manage to cope with this conflict, because this is not a matter, the conflict as such. This is an issue of aggression. And if we will manage to block this aggression, we will manage to find a solution inside this society.
All right, a lot of tasks ahead for your government. Deputy Foreign Minister Olena Zerkal, thank you so much for joining us this morning in studio.
Thank you.